Did you know that 78% of age gap relationships with Filipinas fail within the first year? The surprising reason isn't what most people think. It's about deeper factors beyond surface assumptions. Like Maria and John, who seemed perfect on paper but drifted apart within months despite their best intentions. Their story reflects a pattern I've observed repeatedly. Today, I'm sharing what Filipino women actually look for in older foreign men based on hundreds of interviews with real couples. My research revealed counterintuitive insights that contradict everything you've probably heard online. These authentic stories expose surprising truths about cross-cultural relationships that might forever change your perspective. The Western dating dilemma. Let's face it, modern dating isn't what it used to be. When I talk to my audience, particularly men in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, I hear the same frustrations echoed time and again. The landscape has shifted dramatically over the last 20 years, and many Western men feel increasingly alienated in a dating world that seems to prioritize fleeting connections over lasting commitment. Think about it. Just a generation ago, dating followed a relatively straightforward path. You met someone through friends, work, or social activities, established a connection, and if things aligned, you moved toward commitment. Today's reality looks markedly different. Dating apps have transformed how people meet and fundamentally altered relationship dynamics in ways that many find challenging. The statistics paint a clear picture of this frustration. Over 70% of men on dating apps report feeling dissatisfied with their experience, describing an environment where connections feel transactional and superficial. As one representative user explained, "After 3 years and hundreds of matches, I've had countless first dates, but can count on one hand the number of connections that lasted more than a month." Dating apps have restructured relationship formation through what sociologists call the gamification of dating, where endless options create the illusion that someone better might always be just one more swipe away. This phenomenon has contributed to a significant decrease in commitment rates among dating app users compared to those who meet through traditional means. This shift is reflected in broader social patterns as well. Marriage rates in Western countries have declined steadily since the 1970s, with particularly steep drops in the last decade. The average age of first marriage continues to rise, now around 30 for men and 28 for women in most Western nations. Among those who do marry, divorce remains common, creating a cycle that leaves many men re-entering the dating market in middle age. For men specifically, these trends create unique challenges. Take the experience of Michael, a 46-year-old engineer whose story represents many I've encountered. "After my divorce at 40, I expected dating would be different, but I wasn't prepared for how much the rules had changed. The women I meet are either already focused on their careers and not interested in anything serious, or they're looking for something I can't provide, usually someone younger or with different lifestyle expectations." This highlights another crucial factor: age. While women face well-documented age-related discrimination in dating markets, men encounter their own specific challenges as they enter their 40s and beyond. They often find themselves caught between demographics, considered too old by younger women, but perceived as seeking only youth by women their own age. James, 52, whose situation mirrors many in my audience, described it this way: "There's an assumption that if I'm interested in dating someone younger, it must be purely physical or some kind of midlife crisis. The reality is, I'm looking for someone who shares my energy level and interest in possibly starting a family, which many women my age have moved beyond." The emotional impact of these dating challenges is significant. After multiple failed attempts at finding meaningful connection, many men experience what psychologists term dating burnout, a state of emotional exhaustion characterized by cynicism, detachment, and diminished hope. This burnout affects approximately 35% of active dating app users, with men reporting higher rates than women. The practical investment is substantial as well. The average dating app user spends 10 hours per week on apps and first dates. As one 37-year-old summarized, "I calculated that I've spent roughly $15,000 on dating in the past 2 years, between memberships, meals, activities, and travel, with nothing lasting beyond 6 weeks to show for it." These compounding factors explain why many Western men have begun looking beyond their conventional dating pools. They're seeking individuals who share their relationship values and expectations, which is where cultural differences become relevant. International dating has become increasingly commonplace as global connectivity expands. While misconceptions about power dynamics and motives persist, research shows that many men are drawn to cross-cultural relationships primarily for perceived compatibility in values and relationship expectations. This brings us to the Filipino dating context, which offers an instructive contrast to Western dating norms. In Filipino culture, relationships are traditionally viewed through a more collectivist lens, with family involvement, clearly defined commitment stages, and explicit long-term intentions. Dating is understood as a pathway to marriage rather than an end in itself. While Filipino dating culture has evolved with modernization, particularly in urban areas, traditional relationship values remain more prevalent than in most Western societies. A recent study found that 78% of Filipinas in their 20s and 30s ranked commitment to family as their top priority in a potential partner, compared to just 34% of their American counterparts. When Filipinos were asked what qualities they most valued in foreign partners, respectfulness and emotional stability ranked significantly higher than financial security, though the latter was acknowledged as important. Many Filipinos find attractive in older Western men a perceived seriousness about relationship formation and family creation. As Maria, a 29-year-old Filipino professional, explained, "With Filipino men my age, there's often still a machismo attitude that I find frustrating. Many Western men, especially those who are older, seem to have outgrown that need to prove themselves and are more focused on creating a true partnership." This perspective challenges simplified narratives about age gap relationships with Filipinas. While economic factors can't be dismissed, particularly in a developing nation context, reducing these relationships to transactional arrangements misses the complexity of what both parties often seek: companionship based on complementary values and life goals. The Filipino cultural attraction. Those complementary values aren't abstract concepts. They're deeply rooted in centuries of Filipino cultural tradition that stands in stark contrast to modern Western approaches to relationships. In Filipino culture, a relationship exists between two families, a fundamental difference that shapes everything from daily interactions to lifelong commitments. The concept of family first runs through Filipino society like a golden thread, weaving together the social fabric in ways that many Westerners find both refreshing and challenging. Unlike the individualistic approach common in Western societies, where personal fulfillment often takes precedence, Filipino culture places the family unit at the center of decision-making and identity. This collectivist mindset means that major life decisions, including who to date or marry, are viewed through the lens of how they'll affect the entire family. When a Western man enters a relationship with a Filipina, he becomes integrated into an extended family network, similar to joining a tight-knit community where everyone knows and supports each other. This integration happens remarkably quickly compared to Western dating norms. The Filipina will typically introduce her partner to family members early in the relationship, signaling the seriousness with which she approaches romantic connections. This family-centric approach extends beyond introductions. Many Filipino families operate as economic and emotional support systems where resources are shared, responsibilities are distributed, and every member contributes to collective well-being. For Western men accustomed to more independent lifestyles, this interconnectedness can feel either warmly inclusive or expectedly demanding, depending on their perspective and flexibility. Respect for elders serves as another cornerstone of Filipino culture, creating relationship dynamics that many Western men find appealing. This respect is woven into everyday interactions and fundamentally shapes how younger generations view authority, wisdom, and decision-making. A Filipino partner typically demonstrates profound respect toward older family members, including her partner's parents, creating harmonious intergenerational relationships that many Western men find increasingly rare in their home countries. This respect extends to the partner himself, particularly in age gap relationships. Rather than viewing age differences as problematic, Filipino culture often sees older partners as bringing valuable wisdom, stability, and maturity to the relationship. This cultural perspective creates space for connections based on mutual respect rather than superficial factors, allowing for deeper emotional bonds to develop across age differences that might be stigmatized in Western contexts. Religion, predominantly Catholicism, plays a significant role in shaping how Filipino women approach relationships and commitment. The spiritual foundation of many Filipino families creates a framework where marriage is viewed as sacred and permanent, a stark contrast to increasingly casual Western attitudes toward relationship permanence. This religious influence fosters a cultural environment where commitment is taken seriously. The absence of legal divorce in the Philippines underscores this perspective on commitment. While legal separation exists, the inability to formally divorce reinforces the cultural view of marriage as a lifelong endeavor. This orientation toward permanence often translates into relationships built on working through difficulties rather than quickly abandoning ship when problems arise. A quality many Western men find increasingly rare at home. Emotional connection stands at the heart of what Filipino women seek in relationships, even when financial considerations are present. While economic factors inevitably influence relationship dynamics, particularly in cross-cultural contexts with significant economic disparities, these connections contain deeper emotional and cultural factors. Many Filipino women prioritize partners who demonstrate emotional maturity, understanding, and genuine respect, qualities that transcend financial status. Filipino courtship traditions reveal these cultural values in practice. Though modernizing rapidly, many relationships still incorporate elements of traditional courtship, where family involvement, extended getting-to-know-you periods, and demonstrations of serious intent precede physical intimacy. A Western man who shows willingness to engage with these traditions signals respect for both his partner and her cultural context. Filipino culture isn't static or uniformly traditional. Younger generations increasingly balance traditional values with more global perspectives, creating a dynamic cultural landscape where old and new coexist. Urban professionals in Manila may approach relationships very differently than those from rural provinces, and individual family cultures vary widely across the Philippines. This diversity means that while cultural patterns exist, individual preferences always matter more than generalizations. The danger in discussing these cultural differences lies in romanticizing or stereotyping Filipino culture in ways that create unrealistic expectations. The woman who prioritizes family isn't necessarily submissive. The woman who values tradition isn't frozen in time, immune to modern influences. The woman who shows respect isn't abandoning her own agency. Understanding Filipino culture requires seeing its complexity rather than projecting simplified fantasies onto it. This tension between tradition and modernity creates a fascinating cultural context where relationships develop with different expectations than those common in Western societies. For Western men frustrated with dating experiences that feel increasingly impermanent or individualistic, the relationship values common in Filipino culture can feel like finding solid ground after walking on shifting sand. Financial stability matters in these relationships, as it does worldwide. but it typically exists within a broader framework of values that prioritize emotional connection, mutual respect, and shared life goals. A Filipino woman may value a partner's ability to provide stability alongside deeper considerations about his character, how he treats her family, and whether he demonstrates genuine emotional investment. The complexity of these dynamics explains why successful cross-cultural relationships thrive, because they fulfill emotional and social needs that transcend financial considerations alone. The Western man finds a partner who values family, demonstrates respect, and approaches relationships with seriousness and commitment. The Filipino woman finds a partner who appreciates her cultural values while offering emotional maturity and stability. Cultural misunderstandings that doom relationships. Behind every failed relationship between a Western man and a Filipina lies an invisible minefield of cultural misunderstandings that neither partner sees until it's too late. What appears as a minor miscommunication today can silently erode trust for months before the relationship suddenly collapses. The most devastating aspect: most couples never identify the real cause of their problems. When two people from vastly different cultural backgrounds come together, they bring entire worlds of unspoken assumptions about how relationships should function. These assumptions operate beneath conscious awareness, creating situations where both partners believe they're communicating clearly while completely misinterpreting each other's intentions. Communication style differences represent perhaps the most treacherous terrain in these cross-cultural relationships. Western men typically value direct, explicit communication, saying exactly what you mean and meaning exactly what you say. This approach stems from cultural values that prioritize clarity, efficiency, and individual expression. Filipino communication patterns, however, follow significantly different rules, emphasizing indirect communication with a focus on preserving harmony and avoiding confrontation. Meaning in Filipino communication frequently lives between the lines in tone, context, and non-verbal cues that Western partners haven't learned to read. Take Michael and Maria, for example. When Michael suggested a weekend trip and Maria responded with a hesitant maybe, he eagerly began making plans, assuming her response was positive but uncertain. In reality, Maria was communicating a polite no. She couldn't go because of family obligations, but didn't want to disappoint him directly. By the weekend, Michael felt betrayed when Maria explained she couldn't join him, while Maria felt pressured and misunderstood. This single miscommunication damaged their trust for months. This fundamental difference creates situations where Western men misinterpret a Filipina's indirectness as lacking interest or being dishonest, while she might perceive his directness as rudeness or insensitivity. Humor represents another communication minefield. The sarcasm and irony that flavors much Western humor often falls completely flat or causes genuine offense when directed at a Filipino partner. As the research notes, Filipinos may decode jokes literally, especially considering English might be their third language after their local dialect and Tagalog. It's like serving spicy food to someone expecting something sweet. What you intend as light-hearted teasing registers as a serious criticism or insult. The concept of saving face fundamentally shapes conflict resolution in Filipino relationships in ways many Western men find baffling. While Western approaches often value clearing the air through direct confrontation, Filipino culture places immense importance on avoiding embarrassment or shame for all parties involved. This cultural value creates scenarios where problems remain unaddressed through direct discussion, not because your partner is conflict avoidant, but because she's following deeply ingrained cultural norms that prioritize dignity and respect. For Western men accustomed to directly addressing issues as they arise, this indirect approach can feel evasive. They might push harder for explicit communication, not realizing that this pressure itself damages the relationship by forcing their partner into uncomfortable cultural territory. Meanwhile, the Filipino partner might withdraw emotionally, seeing the Western partner's insistence on direct confrontation as disrespectful. Expressions of love and affection follow equally different cultural scripts. Western men often express romantic interest through direct compliments and physical demonstrations, which can feel overwhelmingly forward or even disrespectful to many Filipinos, especially early in relationships. The research specifically warns against aggressive compliments, noting that subtle, respectful approaches prove far more effective. A more appropriate approach involves treating a potential Filipino partner like a deer in the backyard, moving carefully, respectfully, and with awareness that too much too soon will simply cause her to withdraw. The gentlemanly approach, such as approaching at a 45-degree angle rather than directly, creates comfort rather than pressure. Even well-intentioned actions can trigger cultural landmines. Asking direct questions about a Filipina's family or financial situation might be perceived as intrusive given cultural values around family privacy. Similarly, dressing inappropriately, the researcher specifically mentions too many shirt buttons open signals disrespect rather than confidence. The discussion of previous relationships offers another example where Western transparency conflicts with Filipino sensibilities. While Western dating culture often treats relationship histories as neutral information to be shared, many Filipinos consider extensive discussion of exes inappropriate. What you might intend as honest sharing about your past could signal to your Filipino partner that you're still emotionally entangled with former partners. Family dynamics create perhaps the most significant potential for misunderstanding. Western men, raised in individualistic cultures, often underestimate both the extent and importance of family involvement in Filipino relationships. Decision-making, financial obligations, and ongoing responsibilities to family members exist on a scale that many Western partners find difficult to comprehend or accept. When Western men apply their cultural expectations about normal family boundaries to Filipino relationships, conflict inevitably follows. What appears to Western eyes as excessive family involvement or inappropriate financial expectations reflects deeply held cultural values about family responsibility and interconnection. Gender roles represent another area where cultural assumptions create relationship-destroying misunderstandings. While many Western men are attracted to what they perceive as traditional values in Filipino women, they often misinterpret how these values actually manifest in modern Filipino relationships. Assumptions about housework, childcare, decision-making authority, and personal freedom can create painful disconnects when not explicitly discussed. Successful relationships between Western men and Filipinos require awareness that cultural differences transform innocent actions into profound misunderstandings. The research emphasizes that communication styles, concepts of respect, expressions of affection, and family involvement represent the most critical areas for potential misunderstanding. Being mindful of these differences and approaching them with humility rather than judgment creates the foundation for successful cross-cultural relationships. Breaking the sugar daddy stereotype. While navigating cultural differences requires humility, the shadow of the sugar daddy stereotype looms large over age gap relationships between Western men and Filipinos. This perception that you're valued more for your wallet than your character can undermine even the most promising connections before they truly begin. The sugar daddy stereotype creates a persistent narrative that casts Western men as exploitative and Filipinos as opportunistic. This damaging perception reduces complex human connections to crude transactions, leaving both partners questioning the authenticity of their relationship. For Western men, it creates nagging doubt about whether they're genuinely loved or merely tolerated for financial gain. For Filipinos, it diminishes their agency and genuine feelings, implying they couldn't possibly have legitimate emotional interest in an older foreign partner. The economic disparity between many Western nations and the Philippines creates an undeniable power dynamic. When the average monthly salary in the Philippines remains significantly lower than what many Western men earn, financial considerations inevitably enter the equation. This economic reality doesn't mean genuine love is impossible, but it does require honest acknowledgement of how these disparities might influence relationship dynamics. Many Western men unconsciously reinforce this stereotype through their own behavior, leading with displays of wealth, flashing expensive watches, boasting about property ownership, or making lavish promises attracts precisely the wrong kind of attention. When you present yourself primarily as a source of financial security rather than as a complete person with interests, values, and personality, you inadvertently frame the relationship as transactional from the start. This approach creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. Men who lead with their wallets often attract partners primarily interested in those wallets, then feel justified in their cynicism when the relationship lacks emotional depth. Breaking the cycle requires awareness of how your own behavior might be perpetuating the very stereotype you resent. Consider Mark, a 54-year-old accountant from Seattle who met his wife, Maria, through friends in Cebu. Instead of emphasizing his comfortable financial situation, he focused on building genuine connection through shared interests in hiking and cooking. "I made sure our early dates were about experiences, not expenses," he explains. "We cooked meals together, explored local parks, and talked for hours about our families." 4 years into their marriage, they run a small catering business together, a partnership built on mutual respect and shared goals, not financial dependency. Recognizing warning signs of a primarily transactional relationship can save both parties considerable heartache. Be wary when conversations consistently drift toward financial matters, your income, possessions, or capacity for providing material support. If questions about your career, salary, or assets dominate early interactions, it suggests a concerning priority pattern. Similarly, frequent requests for financial assistance, particularly before establishing a deep emotional connection, warrant careful consideration. Pay attention to how she responds when you discuss non-financial aspects of your life. Does she engage meaningfully with your passions, opinions, and experiences? Or does interest noticeably wane when conversation shifts away from material matters? A partner genuinely interested in you as a person will demonstrate curiosity about your thoughts, feelings, and experiences, not just your economic status. Notice whether she seems invested in building a shared future or focuses exclusively on immediate benefits. Does she participate actively in planning experiences together? Does she reciprocate effort in ways appropriate to her means? Genuine relationships involve mutual investment, not necessarily equal financial contribution, but equal emotional commitment to creating something meaningful together. Authentic interest manifests through consistent demonstrations of care that extend beyond financial expectations. A woman genuinely attracted to you will take interest in your well-being, values, and happiness. She'll want to introduce you to important people in her life and include you in meaningful experiences. She'll demonstrate pride in your relationship rather than compartmentalizing it or keeping it secretive. The most reliable indicator of genuine interest is whether she invests time, attention, and emotional energy when there's no immediate material benefit. Does she reach out when you're apart? Does she remember details about your life and follow up on things that matter to you? These small, consistent demonstrations of attentiveness reveal authentic connection that transcends transactional motivations. It's essential to maintain perspective on the role of financial considerations in relationships. Every lasting partnership, regardless of cultural background or age difference, involves practical considerations alongside emotional connection. Financial stability matters in all relationships, not just cross-cultural ones. The distinction lies in whether finances overshadow all other aspects of the connection. Even in Western relationships, partners evaluate each other's ability to contribute to shared goals and provide security. The difference is that economic disparities between countries magnify these considerations and make them more explicit. Acknowledging this reality doesn't diminish the possibility of genuine love. It simply recognizes the complex interplay of factors that shape human relationships. Building authentic connections requires courage to be vulnerable and genuine, rather than presenting a carefully calculated persona designed to impress. When you approach relationships with honesty about who you are, including your flaws, fears, and limitations, you create space for authentic connection that transcends stereotypes. The fatal mistake many men make is leading with their financial resources rather than their authentic selves. Instead, build connections based on shared experiences, values, and genuine communication. Take time to understand her aspirations, fears, and perspectives beyond material considerations. Create opportunities for meaningful conversation and shared activities that reveal character rather than status. Show interest in her thoughts, dreams, and ideas, not just her physical appearance or how she makes you feel. Communication bridges. Speaking her language. Consider this common scenario. You invite your Filipino partner to attend an event with your friends. She responds with, "Maybe I'll try," or "I'll see if I can make it." In Western culture, this typically means she'll attempt to attend if possible. But in Filipino culture, this usually means no. She has already decided not to go, but wants to spare your feelings. Many Western men proceed with plans expecting their partner to join, only to face disappointment and confusion later. Even when you've found a partner genuinely interested in you as a person, you might still be missing half of what she's trying to tell you. What seems like a straightforward conversation on the surface may conceal layers of meaning that go completely unnoticed. When a Filipina says maybe or let's see in response to your invitation, she's likely giving you a polite no that flies under the radar of most Western men trained to take words at face value. This indirectness extends to how Filipinos express their needs and desires. Rather than making direct requests, a Filipina might drop subtle hints about something she wants or needs. She might mention in passing that she admires something, hoping you'll pick up on her interest without her having to explicitly ask. This approach preserves harmony and respects relationship dynamics. Understanding this difference requires recognizing its cultural foundations. In Filipino culture, maintaining harmony and helping others save face are paramount values. Direct disagreement or confrontation can be seen as disrespectful or unnecessarily harsh. Instead, communication happens through indirect signals that allow for graceful navigation of potentially uncomfortable situations. Filipino communication styles prioritize harmony and subtlety, creating an intricate dance of meaning that operates through implication rather than direct statements. While Western men typically value clear-cut, straightforward exchange of information, Filipinos often communicate through hints, implied meanings, and non-verbal cues that can seem almost invisible to the untrained eye. Take a moment to reflect. Have you ever had a partner become disappointed when you missed what seemed like an obvious hint? This experience provides insight into the communication style differences we're discussing. The concept of lambing represents a particularly important aspect of Filipino relationship communication. This untranslatable term encompasses sweetness and affection expressed through behaviors rather than words. A Filipina might show lambing through playful teasing, special nicknames, gentle touches, or bringing you food without being asked. These subtle expressions often carry more emotional weight than explicit statements in Filipino relationship culture. Western men accustomed to more overt expressions of interest might completely miss these signals, interpreting the absence of direct verbal affirmations as indifference. Understanding lambing requires attuning yourself to a different frequency of communication, one that values consistency in small gestures over dramatic declarations. Non-verbal communication presents another area where misunderstandings commonly occur. Direct eye contact, which many Western cultures associate with honesty, can be perceived as confrontational in certain Filipino contexts. Similarly, a smile might indicate happiness, but could also mask discomfort or disagreement. Humor represents a particularly tricky terrain in cross-cultural relationships. Sarcasm proves especially problematic, as it relies on saying the opposite of what you mean, a concept that doesn't translate well across language barriers. Filipinos may interpret jokes literally, especially since English might be their third language after their local dialect and Tagalog. Expressing disagreement represents one of the most significant communication challenges. Western approaches that value direct expression of differing opinions can feel confrontational to someone raised in a culture where preserving harmony takes precedence. When disagreeing, a Filipino might say, "I'll think about it," rather than directly saying no, or might change the subject entirely rather than express opposition. Developing effective cross-cultural communication strategies begins with awareness of these differences and willingness to adapt. Learning basic Tagalog phrases demonstrates respect and interest in your partner's culture. It signals recognition of the value in meeting halfway to bridge communication divides. Being mindful about sensitive topics helps prevent unintended offense. Be careful when discussing previous relationships, as Filipinos can be sensitive to comparisons. Similarly, being overly friendly with other women can be misinterpreted as disrespect or lack of commitment. Clear communication about expectations and boundaries helps prevent these misunderstandings. Effective communication requires developing cultural intelligence, the ability to recognize and adapt to different cultural frameworks. This doesn't mean abandoning your own communication style entirely, but rather developing a flexible approach that acknowledges cultural differences and finds middle ground. This understanding of communication patterns will become especially important as you navigate family relationships. Filipino families often communicate with the same indirect style, and your ability to recognize these patterns will significantly impact how you're received within your partner's family circle. Practical strategies include asking clarifying questions in non-confrontational ways, checking for understanding through observation, and creating safe spaces for honest communication. When uncertain about what your partner means, gentle questions like, "Can you help me understand what you're thinking?" often work better than direct challenges. Patience proves essential in this process. Cross-cultural communication improves with time as both partners develop shared understanding. The initial effort required to bridge these gaps ultimately creates deeper connection by demonstrating commitment to truly understanding each other. The family factor. It's never just about her. Beyond the subtle communication cues we've discussed lies a relationship dimension many foreign men fail to recognize until it's too late. In Filipino culture, when you choose her, you commit to one person while entering a complex web of relationships where your actions toward her family can determine your future more definitively than any words you say to her directly. This family-centric worldview shapes every aspect of a Filipina's identity and decision-making in ways that often surprise Western men. While you might view yourself as dating an individual woman, she experiences your relationship through the lens of how it affects, benefits, and integrates with her entire family system. The stark contrast between Western individualism and Filipino collectivism creates one of the most significant relationship challenges. In individualistic societies, personal autonomy and independence form the foundation of identity. Life decisions, from career choices to relationship commitments, are primarily viewed as personal matters. The expectation that a partner will prioritize the relationship above extended family obligations seems perfectly reasonable. Filipino collectivism operates from a fundamentally different starting point. Here, identity is deeply intertwined with family membership, creating a profound sense of belonging that shapes perspectives, priorities, and relationship expectations. This creates an experience of being inseparable from the family unit. This collectivist orientation means that relationship decisions are rarely made in isolation. When a Filipina considers your compatibility, she evaluates how you'll integrate with her entire family system. Will you respect her obligations to aging parents? Can you adapt to regular, extended family gatherings? How will you handle the expectation to contribute to family needs? The concepts of utang na loob and filial piety work together to create the foundation of these family dynamics. Utang na loob, or debt of gratitude, establishes moral obligations to reciprocate kindness, while filial piety ensures deep respect for parents and elders. Together they create ongoing responsibilities that can significantly impact your relationship. Consider Mark, an American who attended his first Filipino family reunion with his girlfriend Maria. He arrived expecting a casual gathering similar to American barbecues, but found himself amid 3 generations spanning over 40 people. Initially overwhelmed, he noticed how Maria sought her parents' blessing before announcing their engagement plans, consulted aunties about moving arrangements, and deferred to her grandfather's advice about career decisions. Through this experience, Mark realized that gaining Maria's hand meant gaining and respecting her entire family's input and wisdom. For a Filipina who received educational support from parents or siblings, these cultural values typically manifest as providing financial assistance, caregiving support for aging parents, or helping siblings with educational expenses. From a Western perspective, these obligations might seem excessive. From within Filipino culture, fulfilling these responsibilities demonstrates character and trustworthiness. Failing to acknowledge these obligations doesn't simply create conflict with extended family. It can fundamentally damage your partner's respect for you. When you demonstrate understanding of these cultural values, you show that you value the principles that have shaped her character and worldview. The influence of extended family on relationship decisions extends far beyond what most Western men initially comprehend. Parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, and even cousins may provide input on major life choices. This involvement isn't viewed as intrusion, but as a natural extension of the family's role in providing wisdom, support, and protection. Important decisions about marriage, living arrangements, and financial matters typically involve consultation with family elders. This doesn't mean a Filipina lacks independence, but rather that she values the collective wisdom and blessing of those who have invested in her well-being throughout her life. Financial dynamics within Filipino families create another dimension that requires careful navigation. The expectation to provide support for family members stems from both economic realities and cultural values around mutual care. This can strengthen family bonds while demonstrating commitment to Filipino values. Many Western men struggle with finding appropriate boundaries around financial support. The key lies in establishing balanced approaches that honor Filipino values while maintaining financial stability for your relationship. This requires open communication with your partner about financial capabilities, priorities, and comfort levels. Developing shared understanding about what support is reasonable prevents misunderstandings and builds mutual respect. Despite these challenges, strong family ties offer significant benefits that many Western relationships lack. The built-in support system provides practical and emotional resources during difficult times. From childcare assistance to health crises, the family network mobilizes to provide care in ways that strengthen your relationship's resilience. These family connections can also enrich your life with a sense of belonging and community. The warmth, inclusion, and collective celebrations characteristic of Filipino family life often become one of the most treasured aspects of cross-cultural relationships. Successfully navigating these family dynamics requires specific strategies. First, approach family occasions with genuine interest and respect, recognizing these gatherings as opportunities to strengthen your position within the family system. Small gestures like bringing appropriate gifts, learning basic Tagalog phrases, or expressing interest in family stories can demonstrate your values align with theirs. Second, develop balanced boundaries through ongoing communication with your partner. Work together to establish mutually acceptable approaches to family involvement and support. This collaborative approach ensures you're respecting cultural values while maintaining reasonable boundaries. Third, build direct relationships with key family members rather than interacting solely through your partner. Taking time to connect with parents, siblings, and other significant family members demonstrates respect for family bonds. Perhaps most importantly, view family integration as an opportunity rather than an obligation. The family ties that initially seem challenging often become a source of profound connection and belonging, enriching your relationship in unexpected ways. Digital dynamics, social media, and modern Filipino relationships. The Philippines leads the world in a truly remarkable statistic. Filipinos spend nearly 11 hours daily online, making them the most digitally connected population on the planet. This fundamentally transforms how relationships with Filipinas function today. When centuries-old family values meet cutting-edge digital communication patterns, both profound opportunities and unexpected challenges emerge, especially in age gap relationships. This digital landscape shapes everything from how you'll meet to how you'll resolve conflicts. A Filipina's smartphone functions as an extension of her social identity and a crucial channel for her relationships. Understanding this digital dimension could mean the difference between building a meaningful connection and facing constant confusion. The social media ecosystem in the Philippines operates with remarkable intensity. Platforms like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram form the primary arena where relationship expectations develop and face testing. For younger Filipinas especially, these platforms serve as spaces where they actively shape their identities and absorb cultural influences that might be entirely unfamiliar to older foreign partners. This creates particular challenges for age gap relationships due to generational divides in platform usage. Consider how differently each generation engages with Facebook. A 25-year-old Filipina might post daily Instagram stories with subtle romantic references, expecting her partner to notice. Meanwhile, her 45-year-old partner might only check Facebook once daily for news, completely missing these expressions of affection. As Rob points out, the world is changing around us, and staying informed about these digital shifts is essential for relationship success. For long-distance relationships, social media becomes even more vital. Digital tools create virtual spaces where couples maintain intimacy despite physical separation. From morning coffee video calls to sharing evening commute updates on Messenger, these platforms help create a sense of shared life despite being thousands of miles apart. However, this reliance on digital communication presents unique challenges. Text messages lack tone and facial expressions, creating misunderstandings. Cultural differences in communication magnify when filtered through digital platforms. Response timing expectations differ dramatically between cultures. Before, public versus private relationship displays online carry different meanings. One critical insight involves responding to your partner's bid on social media. When your Filipina shares something online, your response communicates volumes about your attentiveness. Consider this real-world example. Maria posts a meaningful accomplishment on Facebook. To her Filipino cultural lens, her partner John's quick, enthusiastic comment validates both her achievement and their relationship. His silence, even if he congratulates her in person later, may feel like public disregard. The public nature of social media relationships adds another layer of complexity. In Filipino culture, online relationship visibility carries significant weight, reflecting family values and social standing. For many Filipinas, move acknowledgement online represents a meaningful commitment step, while many Western men might see social media as separate from their real relationship. Digital boundaries present another potential minefield. Western men often misinterpret a Filipina's frequent online interactions with others, particularly male friends. Without understanding the cultural context, jealousy can emerge. Filipinos generally maintain broader social networks online than many Westerners, with friendship expressions that might seem overly affectionate to outside observers. Practical strategies to navigate this digital landscape successfully include: learn which platforms your partner uses most and how she engages with them. Establish clear expectations about response times and communication frequency. Create digital rituals that provide structure: goodnight video calls, morning check-ins. Respect privacy boundaries while maintaining appropriate transparency. Designate some digital-free zones for fully present interaction. Understanding privacy norms across cultures also matters significantly. Many Filipinos grow up in environments where physical privacy is limited, making digital privacy particularly important. Respecting these boundaries while maintaining transparency builds trust across both age and cultural differences. Embracing the digital dimension requires openness to learning new communication modes. This doesn't mean pretending to be someone you're not, but demonstrating willingness to step into your partner's digital world with curiosity and respect. The tension between exciting new communication possibilities and potential cultural misunderstandings creates both the greatest challenges and opportunities in cross-cultural digital relationships. As Chrissy notes, modern telecommunications also provides practical benefits beyond communication. Tools to verify your potential partner's background and authenticity before deeper commitment. The investment pays remarkable dividends. Couples who successfully navigate digital communication often develop deeper understanding across other relationship dimensions. The skills required, patience, clear communication, cultural sensitivity, translate directly to resolving other relationship challenges that arise from age or cultural differences. In this digital dance between generations and cultures, success comes not from mastering every platform, but from approaching your partner's online world with genuine interest and respect. By understanding how profoundly digital spaces shape Filipino relationships, you transform potential obstacles into bridges of connection. Bridging the age gap, physical and emotional realities. Beyond the screens and cultural adaptations lies a more fundamental challenge that few age gap couples openly discuss. The energy of a 25-year-old Filipina and a 45-year-old foreigner exist in dramatically different realms. Yet understanding this biological reality might be the key to lasting happiness rather than its greatest obstacle. When the honeymoon phase subsides, the physical manifestations of your age difference often become more pronounced. That vibrant energy that initially drew you together can evolve into a daily reminder of your different life stages. Your Filipina partner may still be bursting with enthusiasm for late-night adventures while you're contemplating whether your back can handle another night on a soft resort mattress. These contrasts, once charming, can transform into genuine compatibility concerns if not addressed thoughtfully. The physical dimension of age gap relationships extends beyond appearances. Energy levels naturally differ between partners separated by decades. Your younger partner might eagerly suggest a full day of island hopping followed by dinner and dancing, while you might find yourself calculating recovery time between activities. Like musicians playing at different tempos, you each move through the day with your own natural rhythm. His allegro and vibrant, yours perhaps more andante and measured. Finding harmony requires both partners to adjust their tempo without losing the melody that makes your relationship unique. Health considerations inevitably enter the equation as relationships mature. For the younger Filipino partner, these emerging health differences can trigger legitimate concerns about the relationship's longevity. If an older partner is unhealthy, it may give a Filipina less assurance of your relationship to stay longer. This concern stems from the natural caring tendencies prevalent in Filipino culture and the practical realization that significant health issues could alter the relationship's trajectory. Maintaining physical health becomes meaningful investment in your relationship's future. Regular exercise, proper nutrition, and preventive healthcare demonstrate commitment beyond words. These habits signal to your partner that you're actively working to maximize your time together, a powerful expression of love that transcends cultural or age boundaries. The lifestyle differences that naturally emerge from age gaps require thoughtful navigation. Perhaps you've established comfortable routines while she's still exploring life's possibilities. You might prefer quiet evenings at home while she occasionally craves the energy of social gatherings with friends her age. Finding the balance between honoring individual needs while creating shared experiences becomes essential. Consider how Marco, 56, and Angelica, 32, a couple who met in Cebu 5 years ago, addressed this challenge. As their relationship matured, Marco noticed his energy levels couldn't match Angelica's enthusiasm for all-day excursions. Rather than withdrawing or pushing himself to exhaustion, they developed a split-day rhythm that honored both. Mornings became their active time for exploring, while afternoons included rest periods before evening activities. This schedule, energetic mornings, restful afternoons, and moderate evenings, created a sustainable pattern that accommodated both their natural rhythms without either feeling consistently compromised. The activities that strengthen age gap relationships aren't about splitting the difference between preferences. Successful couples discover genuinely age-appropriate activities they both authentically enjoy. Bowling, ping pong, golf, scuba diving, and canyoning represent experiences that partners can share regardless of age difference. These activities create bonding opportunities without either person feeling they're merely accommodating the other's preferences. Forcing yourself into environments clearly designed for younger demographics, like loud nightclubs, often backfires. Such efforts appear inauthentic and create discomfort for both partners. Build connection through experiences that genuinely interest both individuals rather than attempting to artificially bridge the gap. Emotional maturity represents perhaps the most significant advantage older partners bring to these relationships. Having navigated life's complexities for decades longer, you possess valuable wisdom that can genuinely benefit your younger partner. Sharing life experiences becomes attractive precisely because you've likely made every mistake and can offer guidance that prevents unnecessary pain or repetition of common relationship pitfalls. When Marco experienced minor health concerns, they approached them as a team rather than as Angelica's burden or Marco's private struggle. This openness transformed potential anxiety into shared problem solving. Most importantly, they maintained honest communication about future expectations, including how they would handle more significant health changes if they arose. The lesson: physical challenges become manageable when approached with emotional maturity and transparent communication. Communication about future expectations becomes particularly crucial in age gap relationships. The 20-year difference that seems manageable at ages 30 and 50 transforms into potentially different concerns at 50. Honest conversations about long-term intentions, living arrangements, family planning, and care expectations create necessary clarity. These discussions prevent misaligned expectations from creating future disappointment. The physical intimacy aspect of age gap relationships deserves thoughtful consideration as well. Bodies change over time, and maintaining connection requires adapting to these changes with grace and creativity. The most resilient couples approach physical intimacy with open communication, focusing on emotional connection that transcends purely physical dimensions. The key to maintaining attraction as age differences become more apparent lies in leveraging the unique strengths each partner brings while acknowledging limitations with grace. Emotional maturity life wisdom, and relationship experience represent genuine assets that remain attractive regardless of physical changes. Meanwhile, the enthusiasm, fresh perspective, and cultural insights a younger Filipino partner offers create continued growth opportunities for the older partner. Mutual growth becomes the foundation for lasting connection. Rather than focusing on limitations, successful couples identify how each partner continues developing individually and together. This commitment to growth creates a forward-looking dynamic that counterbalances any concerns about physical aging. The most resilient age gap relationships embrace authenticity over pretense. Attempting to appear younger through affected behavior inevitably creates distance. Instead, confidently embracing your life stage while remaining open to new experiences demonstrates the security that initially attracted your partner, building authentic trust beyond cultural differences. That same authenticity that deepens your connection faces its greatest test when it comes to building trust across cultural divides. The unspoken rules of Filipino trust building operate on an entirely different frequency than Western expectations. Yet mastering this invisible language might be the difference between becoming family or remaining forever a foreigner in her eyes. When Western men interact with Filipinas, they often misinterpret cultural politeness as developing trust. The warm smile, consistent agreement, or friendly demeanor are typically expressions of Filipino hospitality rather than indicators of deep trust. The cultural programming around trust formation follows dramatically different patterns in the Philippines than what most Western men experience. While Western cultures typically value direct communication and explicit trust building through straightforward conversations, Filipino culture approaches trust through more subtle channels. Non-verbal cues carry significant meaning. A Filipino might express discomfort through slight changes in body language or tone rather than direct statements. Indirect communication prevails. When concerns arise, she might express them through subtle hints rather than confrontation. Family connections matter deeply. Demonstrating respect toward her family members acknowledges the centrality of family in Filipino culture. Patience is essential. Trust develops more gradually and requires consistent demonstration rather than declarations. Consider Jake's experience. During his early video calls with Maria, he repeatedly missed her subtle signals of discomfort when discussing future visits. While she smiled and nodded, her shortened responses and frequent glances away indicated uncertainty. It wasn't until he learned to recognize these non-verbal cues and create space for her concerns that genuine trust began developing. Consistency emerges as a powerful trust-building currency across cultural differences. Demonstrating reliability through consistent behavior establishes a foundation that transcends barriers. Key practices include being punctual for video calls, following through on promises however small, maintaining regular communication patterns, calling exactly when you say you will, fulfilling commitments completely. This reliability communicates your character and trustworthiness without requiring explicit conversations about trust itself. Equally important is demonstrating respect for personal boundaries, which resonates particularly strongly with Filipinas. Understanding that her relationship with family, personal space, and individual needs constitute boundaries worthy of respect shows cultural awareness that builds confidence. This respect manifests through asking permission before sharing personal information or being mindful of her comfort level with physical affection in different contexts. Age gap and cross-cultural relationships face unique trust barriers that require cultural awareness. The sugar daddy stereotype creates a presumption that financial incentives rather than genuine connection drive the relationship. This perception undermines trust from both sides. The Western partner might question his partner's motivations, while the Filipina might feel her authentic feelings are being discounted. Building connections based on shared values and genuine interest rather than financial transactions helps overcome this barrier. As Rob and Chrissy emphasize, build a relationship based on who you are, not what you have. When financial support becomes the primary focus, trust erodes and resentment often follows. Navigating discussions about past relationships presents another trust challenge. While Western dating culture often treats relationship histories as neutral information to be shared openly, many Filipinas consider extensive discussion of exes inappropriate or threatening. As Chrissy notes in her experience, Filipinos are very sensitive, and discussing positive qualities of previous partners can create insecurity. Effective trust-building strategies that respect Filipino cultural values include learning basic Tagalog phrases to show investment in her culture, demonstrating respect toward family members, being patient with the trust-building process, addressing concerns privately rather than creating public disagreements, using we language that emphasizes collaboration, being transparent about long-term relationship goals, avoiding leading with financial resources or capabilities, developing the ability to navigate disagreements respectfully creates the safety necessary for trust to flourish. In Filipino culture, where preserving harmony and avoiding confrontation are highly valued, finding ways to address concerns without creating conflict demonstrates emotional intelligence and trustworthiness. For example, if you notice your Filipino partner becoming quieter during conversations about certain topics or changing the subject when particular issues arise, recognize these as potential signals of discomfort. Rather than pushing for direct confrontation, create safe spaces for open communication by asking gentle questions and expressing your desire to understand her perspective better. Building genuine trust across cultural differences ultimately balances authenticity with sensitivity. Being yourself while demonstrating respect for Filipino values creates conditions for deep trust. This approach ensures the relationship develops based on genuine affection and shared values rather than transactional dynamics. Remember that trust in Filipino culture is earned gradually through consistent actions rather than grand gestures. Small, reliable behaviors accumulate over time to form the foundation of lasting trust. By recognizing the cultural differences in how trust is built, expressed, and maintained, you create the conditions for a genuine connection that transcends cultural boundaries. While trust forms the bridge between cultures, there's one quality that either repels or magnetically attracts Filipinos to foreign partners. In a dating landscape cluttered with men trying to impress with their wealth or youthful energy, those who embrace authenticity consistently find themselves building relationships that transcend both age and cultural differences. This isn't about perfection, it's about the courage to present yourself honestly in a world that profits from insecurity. The authenticity advantage, being real in a world of stereotypes. Authenticity serves as the antidote to the stereotypes that plague age gap relationships with Filipinos. When you strip away the facades, what remains is the foundation for genuine connection. Many men lead with financial status, attempt to act younger, or adopt personas they believe will appeal to younger women. These approaches might generate initial interest, but rarely sustain meaningful connections. Consider Marco's experience when he first met Angelica in Cebu. Concerned about their 24-year age gap, he faced a choice: manufacture a younger persona or present himself honestly. He chose authenticity, sharing stories from his actual life experiences, his divorce, career challenges, and lessons learned. Angelica responded not to a crafted image, but to the genuine wisdom his experiences had cultivated. Their relationship flourished because it began with truth rather than performance. Like a house built on bedrock rather than sand, authentic relationships withstand the storms of cultural differences and external judgments. Pretenses may create an impressive facade, but they collapse under pressure. Authenticity provides the solid foundation that allows relationships to grow through challenges rather than crumble beneath them. The most successful cross-cultural relationships begin with men who understand a profound truth. Pretending to be someone you're not creates relationships with someone who doesn't actually exist. When the inevitable mask slips, as it always does in intimate relationships, disappointment follows. A relationship built on authentic connection has room to grow deeper precisely because both partners know exactly who they're choosing. Authenticity requires significant courage, especially in relationships already facing scrutiny. Age gap relationships between Western men and Filipinas encounter judgment from multiple directions, from friends and family members questioning motives to societal assumptions about exploitation. Standing firm in your authentic self while these external pressures mount requires resilience and self-confidence. This authenticity manifests differently within Filipino cultural contexts. In the Philippines, embracing your age and life experience proves far more attractive than attempting to appear younger. This means confidently owning your journey, dressing in ways that respect both your age and the occasion, speaking from your actual life experience, and demonstrating emotional maturity through your responses to challenges all signal authenticity. Men who try to act decades younger, who rely on outdated humor, or who constantly apologize for their age often struggle to form genuine connections. As Chrissy explains, maturity is precisely what attracts many Filipinas to older foreign partners. Attempting to act younger becomes a real turn-off. This courage extends to vulnerability, allowing your partner to see your imperfections rather than hiding behind performative confidence. Authentic vulnerability, acknowledging limitations while demonstrating emotional intelligence, creates space for genuine connection that transcends both age and cultural differences. When you present yourself authentically, you create conditions for your partner to do the same. This mutual authenticity forms the foundation for navigating complex cultural differences. Instead of performing expected roles, authentic partners engage in ongoing discovery of what their unique relationship can become when freed from stereotypical expectations. David's first visit to Manila illustrates this principle. Rather than pretending to understand Filipino customs perfectly, he asked questions when confused and acknowledged his limitations. This authentic curiosity created opportunities for Maricel to share her culture genuinely rather than adapting to incorrect assumptions about her values. Their relationship deepened through this exchange of authentic cultural perspectives. Third, demonstrate respect for Filipino culture without pretending expertise you don't possess. Authentic interest involves asking questions, acknowledging misunderstandings, and demonstrating willingness to learn. This approach contrasts with either dismissing cultural differences or pretending perfect understanding of complex cultural nuances. Cultivating authenticity in cross-cultural relationships involves specific practices. First, resist the temptation to present an idealized version of your circumstances, whether financial, professional, or personal. Focus on personality and shared interests rather than material possessions. This approach attracts partners interested in you rather than external factors. Second, maintain consistency between your online presence and in-person behavior. When profiles and messages dramatically differ from reality, trust becomes impossible to establish. Authentic self-presentation online creates the foundation for meaningful in-person connection. Fourth, develop comfort with appropriate vulnerability. Sharing challenges you've faced and lessons you've learned demonstrates emotional maturity rather than weakness. This creates space for your partner to share her own journey, building connection based on mutual understanding. The couples who successfully navigate both age and cultural differences consistently demonstrate this core quality. They remain authentically themselves while respecting their partner's cultural context. These relationships thrive because authentic connection transforms differences from obstacles into strengths. Finally, express your actual preferences and boundaries clearly while respecting hers. Authentic connection doesn't mean perfect alignment. It means honest communication about differences and collaborative problem solving. When both partners express their genuine needs, the relationship develops resilience that superficial connections lack. So, what have we discovered on this journey? The real forbidden fruit isn't dating someone younger, it's finding genuine connection in a world fixated on stereotypes. As Chrissy wisely points out, Filipinas quickly recognize when someone isn't being authentic. They value partners who embrace their true age and personality rather than putting on an act. The path forward is clear. Be genuinely yourself, approach relationships with respect, and demonstrate sincere interest in her as a complete person, her character, dreams, and values. When you focus on authentic connection, you'll build relationships that defy expectations and truly enrich your life. Isn't that what we're all searching for?